The Everglades is really unique. It's a one-of-a-kind ecosystem that we don't have anywhere else in the world. And as a result, it's been designated as a national park and a World Heritage Site. And there are certain plants and animals that we only find in this ecosystem, yet they have been impacted by loss of habitat and changes to water quality and water quantity. The Everglades is a highly altered system. We have drained it so that we can develop it and move here. We've impacted the floodplains throughout the system that serve to store and treat water. We have constructed a dike around Lake Okeechobee, and Lake Okeechobee is a shallow lake that used to expand across the landscape in reaction to rainfall patterns, and now it's constrained by the dike. So all these changes that we have implemented across the Everglades ecosystem over the years have allowed us to develop it. However, they've had a lot of unintended consequences and impacts. Impacts to our threatened and endangered plant and animal species across the Everglades. It's highly impacted our water supply, both our water supply for people, but also for the Everglades and the natural systems we rely on. And it's impacted our water quality. We have a lot of extra nutrients in the Everglades ecosystem that were not there naturally. And we can see that in incidences like we've seen this year and in past years, where we've had terrible algal blooms. Those algal blooms are toxic and they can kill fish, manatees, dolphins, turtles. Those impacts affect tourism and human health. So it's had huge impacts on our economy. Because of the impacts we've seen in the Everglades, people look for short-term solutions, and I certainly wish there were some, but unfortunately there are no silver bullets to the impacts that we're seeing in the Everglades. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the concept of shared adversity. Shared adversity, it was key to the passage of the Everglades Restoration Plan that we're currently implementing. And it was the idea that the challenges were great. They were going to take us a long time to solve. And so we would work to make incremental improvements to the system that would improve parts of the system, but wouldn't solve all of our problems at once. So we would start to see these gradual improvements across the system as we implement projects. And so we have to keep that idea of shared adversity in mind as these solutions are taking longer than we'd like. And we need to make sure our need for urgent solutions ensures that we're employing solutions that are grounded in science and are going to help solve the problem. One of the fastest short-term solutions we can implement is what we call operational flexibility. And let me explain a little bit about what I mean by that. So I mentioned that the Everglades has been highly altered. So we've constructed canals and lots of different types of water management structures from Lake Okeechobee south through Miami and the Keys. There are different ways we can operate those structures to provide flexibility. And so the Army Corps of Engineers and the Water Management District has been trying to do that. They've been trying to find creative ways they can move water around while we have too much water in the system so we can reduce some of these impacts. The challenge that they have in trying to do that is that there are a lot of constraints throughout the system that limit how much flexibility they have. And so those constraints are things like making sure that we protect public safety in places like the area around Lake Okeechobee where they're fixing the dike, or making sure that we don't impact threatened and endangered species or tribal and cultural resources. So as they operate all those structures, they're looking to be flexible, but they're having to do that within the constraints of the system. Another short-term solution that we've been focused on is accelerating the repairs to the dike around Lake Okeechobee. When the Corps determined that the dike needed repairs, they had to start operating water levels within the lake differently. They had to start holding water more shallow in the lake because they realized that the dike needed to be repaired. And so we've been encouraging the Army Corps to accelerate those repairs to the dike so they can complete that by 2022. And to have a new plan in place at the same time so that once the dike is repaired, they're able to operate the water levels within Lake Okeechobee differently so that we can gain some of that storage that we lost in the system and hopefully reduce those damaging discharges that we've been having to make. Many people ask, what can I do to help? And there are a lot of things that you can do to help or to increase your knowledge about these issues. We can recognize that these problems weren't created overnight and aren't going to be solved overnight, but we need to be focused and diligent. You can recognize that we all play a role in the problems and the solutions, and that finger pointing is not going to solve our problem. You can encourage support for septic to sewer conversions. You can limit your fertilizer use on your lawns and encourage steady funding so that we can get these projects implemented. You can support elected officials who are seeking funding for Everglades restoration and support these projects. And you can go to the Everglades to see it in person and really get out and understand and appreciate why it's such an amazing system and why it's the world and America's Everglades.